From sometime in the 23rd century, in a great domed city, sealed away from the forgotten world outside, it's the DigiGods. And now, two guys who hate outside, they hate it, they hate it. Wade 5 and Mark 6.
Ooh, Mark 6. That's a good one. Who sent that one in, Corey?
That was brought to you by Brian Sagan. Rhymes with Menachem Begin. Flagging Glagen.
Corey gets into Jerry territory. It's always funny. I cut you off last week. You were going to share something, and I can't remember what it was. What were you going to tell us last week?
Oh, you know I remembered. It was the time I maced myself.
Oh, you maced yourself. Okay. When did you mace yourself?
Well, I moved back to New York for a brief time.
Yes.
I was hoping it wasn't going to be a brief time, but it wound up being a brief time. In like the late 90s.
Okay.
Right?
Sure.
And my father was very worried about me. So he bought me a little can of mace. It was this little yellow canister with a black top, and you would press the black top, and the mace would squirt out. Right. And I was really curious to see, because you see in movies, or you hear about how mace makes people just double over in complete intense pain.
Yeah.
And I thought, how bad could mace really be? And I thought, there's really only one way to find out how bad mace could really be, and that would be to mace myself. So what I did was, I have to say,
you did this on purpose?
Oh yeah. So what I did was, I took a little bit of mace, right, and I sprayed it on I sprayed a little bit on my finger, right, and then I took 7 molecules of mace and put it underneath my eye, and then took another 7 molecules of mace and put it underneath the other eye.
Yeah,
that was it.
Okay,
like molecules under the eye. And let me tell you, it was so effing painful for like 20 minutes. Just 7 granules of mace under my eye, doubled over in horrible pain for 20 minutes. Okay. So that is the story of me macing myself.
Okay.
I mean, it wasn't as dramatic as me like trying to get the top off and accidentally spraying myself with mace. It was voluntary.
Can't believe you did that.
I did do that.
Okay.
By the way, I still have that mace. I wonder if mace goes bad. You talk. Are you going to start with that movie?
Yeah, I was going to start. Well, we missed getting into some foreign language stuff last week, so I want to.
You do that. I'm gonna Google can mace go bad? Shelf life of mace.
Really important foreign language films that we want to make mention of this week right out of the gate. Almayer's Folly is a Chantal Akerman film. The late Chantal Akerman, just an extraordinary, great French filmmaker. This is one of her final films. This was made in 2011, and in Cambodia, and it's based on a Joseph Conrad novel from 1895. Joseph Conrad's first novel. And it is very Joseph Conrad-like, certainly. The story of a man in Southeast Asia, the general vicinity of Cambodia, sort of the Westerner in the turbulent third world or in an exotic location, which is a scenario that is often ridiculed and, the white savior thing. But in Conrad's novels, that's not really how it is. It's always much more meditative and existential. And that certainly is the way that this plays. It is a really beautiful, poetic film. This is from Icarus, and highly, highly recommended. This was well received at Toronto Film Festival. We also have the new film from Pedro Almodovar, Julieta, which was a little bit of a. Did you see Julieta during award season?
Here's the thing: pepper spray.
Oh dear, here we go.
Pepper spray will expire. Well, here's the thing. What they're saying is that the active ingredient, the inflammatory, that is what's so painful, that does not expire necessarily, but the aerosol can will not spray the advertised distance. That's what actually expires.
Okay.
So it seems like the active ingredient, the one that is the inflammatory that makes it so painful, that takes a lot less time to expire. The problem is that the propellant will
of course
expire.
Okay, very good.
So basically, it's been about 20 years since I moved to New York. I should probably get rid of that canister.
Probably, I would think so. Okay. Yeah. So Julieta is a really, really interesting film from Almodovar that really did not get a lot of traction just because it's not one of his best. So, peak Almodovar tends to get treated by people as like, junk, which it isn't.
I feel like Almodovar, either we're used to him making interesting films, so when a film is just a little less interesting, it's a disappointment.
Right.
Or his best days are behind him.
No. He still makes really interesting movies. This is a very interesting film. Emma Suarez and Adriana Ugarte both play the same character at different stages in her life, and it is a fascinating portrait of this one woman's life, primarily detailed in two particular chapters, 2 episodes, 2 periods, looking for her daughter, her relationship with her daughter. And then, of course, in the present day, her daughter has sort of gone off of her own volition and disappeared. And it is it has some very interesting twists and turns to it, and as his films often do. Some of them feel a little bit forced and contrived, I have to be honest. For the first time, I kind of felt like he was doing certain things narratively just to sort of force the next surprise in the story. I sort of saw the mechanics. It was like I was looking under the hood for a change. And that may be why it's minor Almodovar, but still, the music, the acting, everything about it, the mood, the tone, it's so luxurious, and I still thoroughly enjoyed it. So there's that. The Lovers on the Bridge is out finally on Blu-ray, courtesy of Kino. This is interesting because we're starting to get some Miramax films trickling out on Blu-ray. The Miramax library, is still kind of a mess. They are they're the new owners, and there are new owners. They don't really know how to exploit it, and they aren't film people. And they, the previous owners were going to do some new Miramax films, and nobody really. It's a mess. Harvey should have this. He would know what to do, and these movies would all get the A-list treatment, and we'd get them. But otherwise, it's just sort of sitting there languishing, and they're sort of sub-licensing these things out to people as need be. So we're going to get a trickle of them, but for now we're getting certainly some significant ones. Lovers on the Bridge is a great one. Leos Carax made this and got savaged for it. Juliette Binoche and Denis Lavant basically playing homeless people who live under Pont Neuf in Paris. It was called Les Amants du Pont Neuf is the original French title, and it's a really interesting, daring film. It was savaged in France because it was so expensive at the time, needlessly so. But I think in hindsight, it's a really, really interesting movie, and it goes into some very, very unusual and unorthodox tangents. But what's also significant is that Kolkoa is coming up. I know you hate it when I talk about Kolkoa.
You know what? I emailed for a press credential. They never got back to me.
Oh, they will. We'll make it happen. You're LAFCA. LAFCA gets luxury access to Kolkoa.
I would think so, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
They never emailed me back.
Just hit him again.
You know why? Because the guy's name is True Fart.
There you go. That's Francois.
True Fart.
You know Francois.
Probably met him at some point.
Okay.
He needs to get me a job. He needs to get me a job in Paris.
You know what? Let's hit him up. Let's see what we can do. Right?
True Fart.
Truffard, and Francois is the best. I just adore him. He has worked wonders with that festival. So that's the City of Lights,
great festival.
City of Lights, City of Angels Festival, French films in LA. Lovers on the Bridge is going to be showing this year as a special selection by Damien Chazelle. Damien Chazelle chose this. This is a film that he loves. Of course, the youngest ever Oscar winner for La La Land now. Who's half French, by the way. His dad's French. So that is out on Blu-ray from Kino. Highly recommended. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful transfer. Interesting movie, Just a Sigh, French language film with Gabriel Byrne, of all people. Gabriel Byrne and Emmanuel Deveau. And this is from Distrib Films, distributed through Icarus. And I was unfamiliar this even existed, but Emmanuel Deveau is just so wonderful. And I thought this, even though this is a little bit of a weird pairing with Gabriel Byrne, I thought it was really, really sweet. The press compares it a little bit to Brief Encounter as far as an unusual romance, people who meet by accident. But I don't really see it that way. I kind of see it a little bit more in a I don't know. Woman Next Door might be an example, like the Truffaut film. That's a little bit more the vein that this is in. Maybe Man and a Woman-ish. But it's a really, really sweet film. And then still on the French film vein, we've got Being 17, the new André Téchiné film, which is kind of minor Téchiné, but it's still really, really good. This was a bit of a hit at the Berlin Film Festival. It's on Blu-ray from Strand, and it is essentially looking at, he's been dealing with youth for a while now, all the way back to Wild Reeds, dealing with the struggles of growing up under certain circumstances in France, sexual awakening and all that. This is continuing that thrust that he's been doing for a while now, and it was co-written with Céline Sciamma, who did Girlhood. So they both kind of work in a little bit of the same vein, and looking at teenagers in France who come from different backgrounds, very much in the current discussion about immigration and European identity. It gets into all of that stuff, and it's got Sandrine Kiberlin in it, who I always think is just a wonderful actress. So that's it's typically cool Téchiné. And then lastly, Mark, Paul Verhoeven. So we got
RoboCop.
Yes, the director of Basic Instinct and Total Recall, who directed Isabelle Huppert to an Oscar nomination in a French language film. How did that happen?
Hey, he's gone back home. You know what? That was
supposed to be an English language film. You know that originally.
How often has a European director come to America, figuring that they would cash in, didn't work out, and then they go back to their home country?
Okay, so here's where he's been going. He did Black Box a few years ago, which was a Dutch film, and then he made the first of two films I'm going to talk about here, Tricked. Now, Tricked is out on DVD right now, which is also a Dutch film, a very unusual Dutch film. This was made 4 years ago, and it's a bit of an experiment. It's kind of like a non-narrative kind of reality TV-ish thing, at least the way that he gets into it, and then it becomes this thriller. And it almost feels like a completely unscripted seat-of-your-pants movie. But you can tell he's trying to do something a little more interesting. This thing was crowdsourced, by the way. This was funded completely through online donations. So he makes Tricked, which is okay. But then it leads into Elle, which I have on Blu-ray right here, which was an unexpected hit everywhere in France and here, and got Isabelle Huppert her first Oscar nomination. Would you ever have thought that an actress with 50 years, practically 50-some years behind her, 45-some years, she's been at it about 45 years, someone like Isabelle Huppert, who will still take her clothes off, by the way, even though she's in her 60s, and have at it because she looks great. Would you ever have thought that with her distinguished career, all the directors that she's worked for, the director who would direct her to an Oscar nomination would be Paul Verhoeven? That's just weird.
I guess, but it's the right role. It's said the right thing at the right time. Also, how many Isabelle Huppert films have been released in the United States? To the extent that enough Academy members know it exists, it does well in specialty markets. It rarely happens.
Strange. Well, anyway.
She's won like 75 César Awards.
Oh, it's ridiculous. She's just, she's one of the great actresses of all time. She's so subtle. And she's been doing this since the 70s, and the character here is very much in her wheelhouse. It's the typical kind of duplicitous ice queen that she does so incredibly well. She's the head of a video game company, and
you know what? I didn't like that part of it.
You didn't like that part of it?
I don't like movies that try to depict video games because it never.
That stuff was actually kind of funny.
It never looks like a video game. It looks like the filmmaker's conception of what a video game looks like.
Yeah, true. It's such a minor part of the story, though.
Like there's some monster that got her.
She's
her
a
head
tech
on
CEO. She's a tech CEO basically, and she is then. And then we get into some weird sexual stuff because then there's like this sexual assault in her home, and she has this weird kind of double life, and then there are these unusual neighbors, and it all kind of connects in a really twisted way. I didn't love this movie. I didn't love it either. It was originally supposed to be in English, and he couldn't get the funding in English because it was just too risque and to push too many buttons, and so he decided to do it in French, and Isabelle Huppert was available, and boom, Oscar nomination.
Well, this is much more of a French film. This is like...
It's still a Verhoeven film, though. It still goes to those kind of sick, Basic Instinct-y kind of extremes.
Right, but in France, they can handle that. They won't freak out, and there won't be op-eds all over the world.
True.
Like in America, you tell that story in English, our children will be destroyed. What's happening with the culture?
It's okay. I mean, it's fine. It's fine. I prefer that other film that she made. She made another film last year, which was the title of which
Steve the Film.
No, her other French language film.
Star Wars?
I'll
look it up.
Look it up.
Isabel
and then we'll.
Huppert.
Yes. The other film I thought was the better film and the better performance this last year.
Let's see. Oh, Things to Come.
Things to Come. That's
right. I saw that.
Okay, new movies. Mark.
New movies.
4K of Patriots Day. Mark Wahlberg.
This thing went nowhere.
I know.
This is going to be like, it's going to make everyone feel in love with America again. It's going to make us cry, and then no one cared.
So Mark Wahlberg and Peter Berg are becoming like the Scorsese and De Niro of hard-scrabble, blue-collar, working-class American, what do you call them?
Wiggles?
Hard hat movies. Hard hat movies. That's what I'm calling them. Hard hat movies. So we went from Lone Survivor, which is a war film, to what was the oil rig movie.
Deepwater Horizon.
Deepwater Horizon.
I thought that movie was good.
It's good.
It was it was lean.
It is lean.
Tight. Tells its story. Saves its
I
people.
think Peter.
The end.
I am willing to say that Peter Berg is now a totally underrated American auteur. I've been wanting to not say that.
No, I wouldn't say auteur.
You know what he is though? Peter Berg's movies. They have a style. They have an attitude. They're all saying something. He really is a guy with something on his mind. And they're hard hat movies. That's basically what it is. They're about blue collar working class guys, and Mark Wahlberg is the his De Niro through which he channels that, and that's very evident in Patriots Day, which of course is all about the Boston Marathon bombing and how that transpired and how it was solved and the events that went on surrounding it. It is extremely well done. The one thing that's problematic is the Mark Wahlberg character, who is an amalgamation of all of these other characters. This guy did not exist, and it's a little bit. It's a little forced that he is at the middle of every single significant event in that entire thing. He's there, he's everywhere. So I would have preferred that they do it more kind of in the vein of something like what's a good example? The Big Short, right? Where we don't have one person who's present at every single event in this entire episode, but we're following multiple stories that are all sort of orbiting the same central thing. I think a better way to have told this story would have been to do that. However, that said, it's still really, really, really well done, and it's very engaging.
Well, the thing is that if you do that, you're pretty much making an Irwin Allen film.
Yeah, right? Kind of, yeah.
So basically. I don't know whether Deepwater Horizon should be an Irwin Allen film.
No, not Deepwater Horizon, but Patriots Day probably should be.
Day.
Yeah. Anyway, gorgeous 4K work here. The Blu-ray is great too. I mean, this thing just looks really good. They did a great job mastering it. Lionsgate, is really, really on the ball with this stuff. Not a lot by way of extras. It's mostly EPK stuff, featurettes and interviews and whatnot. But that's fine. The movie's the thing, and it's worth checking out.
Yes.
Let's talk about that.
20th Century Women, one of my favorite films of last year. I love this film. I love this script. I am so happy that Mike Mills is finally starting to get the recognition he deserves as a writer. Beginners with Christopher Plummer and Ewan McGregor was one of my favorite films of that year. And Annette Bening, I don't understand how she didn't get 75 Oscars for this. I just think it is her best performance ever. Yes, I'm going to say it. She plays this woman. She's got a teenage son, and the teenage son is a little bit troubled. So she kind of she asks some of the other young kids who live in this house, including Greta Gerwig, to kind of serve as a role model. And so she's trying to understand her kids. She's trying to understand herself as she gets older. And I just think this is an extremely detailed and perceptive script. I just love this movie. It's great character-based stuff. It's a great snapshot in time. It's a great drama, but it's still got laughs. It's great. I just think this movie is absolutely terrific. I really, really loved it. It includes an audio commentary with Mike Mills, which is worth watching or listening to because he's a very, very smart guy, and I'm really, really, I'm really, really happy for him. So Billy Crudup is in this. He's terrific. Billy Crudup seems like he's having another moment again.
He kind of is, and I'm glad.
It's
time.
So I think this thing has a lot to say about growing up, not only in the era in which the film takes place, but also today. It has a lot to say if you're, let's say, your mother's age and you're kind of, you're into your 50s or even into your early 60s, and you're kind of wondering, you don't really understand necessarily the younger generation or where you fit in it. And I just think this film was just great. It was just delightful. 20th Century Women, a definite must-watch as far as I'm concerned. Yep. Also surprisingly good was A Monster Calls. I was really not expecting much from this movie. I wasn't either. I loved it.
I wanted this to be more like the BFG. Or I wanted the BFG to be more like this, I should say. This is the movie I wanted the BFG to be.
Yeah. And J.A. Bayona, who is directing the new Jurassic Park, which is a bit of a shame because he's so talented. I don't want him to sell out already.
He directed the
Impossible.
The Impossible,
so
the tsunami movie. He's great. He's really good.
And this is the best film Sigourney Weaver's done in a long, long time. And the kid is great. The monster's great. Liam Neeson's great in the voice. It's just, there's a tricky balance here because it's trying to be like emotional and it's trying to be, magical CGI for the kids, and also wants to be kind of exciting. And it's kind of a tough.
It's a tough balancing
tough
act.
Things to a tough thing to juggle, but it does. This thing is just. It's. I'm surprised how tender it was. I love the fact that the stories that he tells, the little fables he tells, are done in different animation styles, right? Which adds even more visual interest to it.
It's great. It's really terrific.
And what I liked about it too is that it's also pretty tough-minded. I mean, this thing is not it's not a gentle, even though it is kind of a gentle film. It has a lot of tough things to say because in the film, the little boy's mother is dying, and he's got to come to grips with that and find a way to get on with the rest of his life. And there's a lot of tough-minded stuff going on here. So it's not just like a film for kiddies, So it's terrific. I was very surprised. It's got a making of featurette, and also a making of the animated little interstitials there, which were good. There were also some deleted scenes, neither of which needs to be in the film. And so Monster Calls, I thought is very ambitious, maybe even a little bit too ambitious, but I just think this thing is hard to shake. It's a good movie.
I agree. I'm surprised it didn't get more love at award season.
Speaking of movies that didn't get a love at award season, Wade, you know what? I'm still watching Silence. That's how long it is. Okay. I know. Here's a little bit of insight into the LA Film Critics process. Every couple of years, everybody wonders whether the new Scorsese film will be completed in time for us to look at it.
It's true.
Right?
It's really true.
And then there's that one moment when the distributor drops the bomb that like tomorrow at 3 a.m. they're going to screen it for us. Yeah. And no one can show up. Yeah. And no one does show up. And then they find a way to screen it again. And then by that time, it just seems like it's not exciting anymore,
I went to the big screening of Silence.
The first one or the second one?
The first one on the lot where everybody else was, where we all walked in, bright and bouncy top of the morning, and then 2.5 hours later, everyone kind of slogs out and feels as if we're the ones who've been tortured for our religion, which is essentially what the movie's about. It's interesting. Andrew Garfield was in 2 movies by directors with Catholic roots, telling movies about someone with a religious conviction who suffers for it. And Hacksaw Ridge being the other one, the Mel Gibson film, even though the character in that is a Seventh-day Adventist. And here it's the story of priests, Andrew Garfield and Adam Driver in particular, who go looking for another priest who has gone missing, Liam Neeson. He hasn't gone missing, but they think he's gone native.
Colonel Kurtz.
It's very much in that vein. This is Portuguese missionaries trying to make converts out of feudal Japan, and feudal Japan, of course, wants nothing to do with this Western religion. They wanted, everything is traditional there, and so they go looking to and come across a whole subculture of persecuted but very devout Japanese Catholics. And, of course, it is how they wind up sort of falling into this feudal nightmare of torture and religious persecution. It is based on a novel, for those who don't know. It is based on a novel which they handed us at the screening, and then, I had lunch there afterwards, and Andrew Garfield sat at our table, and they did the usual thing, right, where everybody, all the talent sort of circulates the tables, and they try to grease the wheels for awards consideration. And I had the feeling that really nobody apart from our good friend Justin Chang liked this movie. Justin thought it was the best film of last year. It was his favorite film of the year, and I get that. I get why a lot of people like it. It was too much of an ordeal for me, but it was beautifully made.
Now, when Andrew
I prefer The Mission. The Mission is this movie done right.
Sure. Now, when Andrew Garfield sits at the table, and now Andrew is beholden to make stupid small talk with a bunch of people he doesn't know, but somehow he has to impress.
That is unfortunately the burden of stars at press events. But in any case, The Silence based on a novel. We're getting some bad audio there. There we go. Based on a novel by a rather renowned Japanese novelist who was in fact Catholic and who wrote the novel as a way of wrestling with a lot of the issues of being from one culture and adapting to adopting a religion from another culture. Anyway, none of that really, I don't think, is dealt with terribly well in the movie. But that being said, it has its merits. It's beautifully shot. It's for the most part well acted, but I don't know, kind of a misfire, right? And it was. I hate to say that about passion projects, but anyway, it should have been like The Mission. So, 3 interesting little indies here that I will go through real quickly. A Kind of Murder is an Andy Goddard film that came out and kind of came and went, based on a Patricia Highsmith novel. I'm kind of amazed that there are any Patricia Highsmith novels left that have not been made into movies, and this is one of them, and it didn't really go anywhere. It is one of the Patrick Wilson is one of the most interesting guys, right? I mean, he's not.
I find him kind of boring.
Well, that's the thing. He's kind of boring, but he's sort of a major. I don't want to call him a star, but he's
been in major films, but he's not a major star.
There you go. It's interesting, and he just kind of floats through these things. People like to cast him, but in any case, Patrick Wilson is the star of this. The whole thing takes place in 1960 in New York. And it's about a guy who develops a kind of vertigo-like obsession with someone who may have killed his wife. And it winds up pushing him psychologically into some interesting places, and then something happens, and I won't tell you what happens. But it's very stylishly done. Andy Goddard does a good job with it overall, but for some reason it just kind of doesn't really click. Good supporting performances. Jessica Biel is absolutely just lovely. You would call her delicious. She's just wonderful. I wish she'd do more movies. Eddie Marsan, always a chameleon. Wonderful actor. But somehow, sometimes it just kind of misses. It's worth watching, but don't crazily go out of your way. So anyway, that is A Kind of Murder. And then a movie that I thought was lovely, Ollie and Nino. I thought this was wonderful. I don't know why this didn't get any kind of a serious release. This is a narrative film by Asif Kapadia, who, of course, has been a tremendous documentary filmmaker since his debut film, The Warrior, which was supposed to be a foreign language nomination or foreign language submission from the UK, and for whatever reason, because it was largely in Hindi, it wasn't accepted. It's an amazing movie. I also got caught in that Miramax closet moment. And then he went on to do 2 amazing documentaries, Senna, the race car driving documentary, and Amy, which he won an Oscar for.
Which is great.
Tremendous. So he's gone back to narrative filmmaking here. Ollie and Nino. This went nowhere for no good reason. It's basically a Romeo and Juliet love story between a woman who is Christian, a man who is Muslim. Takes place just on the eve of World War I in Azerbaijan, and then World War I intervenes, and it becomes very Dr. Zhivago-like. Does not have a huge budget, but it's really literate. Beautiful screenplay by Christopher Hampton, by the way. And I thought it was just beautifully done. Deserved a much better release, and I hope Asif Kapadia gets more work out of it. I hope it really kind of catches fire with somebody. Arsenal is the latest movie from the people at Grind. So Arsenal is from Grindstone Entertainment. Grindstone is the company that does all the Steven Seagal movies that we always make fun of. They just make, straight to video. Maybe we'll get a theatrical release. Just kind of the generic action cop stuff that we always see over and over. Lots of Steven Seagal, lots of Nick Cage. This is more Nick Cage. And man, is this way too much Nick Cage. So here's a story in Arsenal. Adrian Grenier is a good brother. Jonathan Skeck is his bad brother, who's got all kinds of problems, and Grenier's grown up to be a very successful businessman. Skeck is right, and well, his brother does something untoward and winds up in the debt of Nicolas Cage, who plays the most ridiculous gangster you've ever seen in your life. Nicolas Cage's brother actually even shows up in this as an even badder gangster. Nicolas Cage has like the wig and the whole. It's just insane how over the top he is.
Nicolas Cage over the top?
Oh my gosh, I've
never seen that before.
This is beyond over the top.
What happened to John Cusack? What happened to him?
He shows up in movies like this as a cop.
I know, it's over, right? It's kind of over for him.
It's kind of over. Yeah. So anyway, that is highly forgettable. Mark, do we want to hit those last two and then dive into some TV? Okay.
Collateral Beauty, Wade. Now, here's the thing. If you're going to do a movie about the... John Cusack is in this, by the way. Collateral Beauty.
I did not see this. Is it as bad as everyone said it was?
Well, here's the thing. If you're going to do a movie about a parent who loses a child, you can either do it the Manchester by the Sea way, right?
Yeah.
Or you can do it the Collateral Beauty way.
Uh-huh.
One way winds up being nominated for 75 Oscars and is this very deep and dark and
emotionally textured,
detailed journey that is not melodramatic at all. Or you can do Collateral Beauty, which is a big, soppy, lump in the throat, manipulative, ridiculous, please award me, give me an Oscar, I'm going to cry on screen now, piece of crap. And there you go. So if you like your Death of a Child movies, really, really just ridiculously over the top and purple and stupid, you should go for Collateral Beauty. Will Smith, who, you know what, I still love Will Smith. I do. I really do still love Will Smith. By the way, John Cusack is not in this. It's Edward Norton. I forgot. I got it mixed up. You know, I just don't see the appeal for this other than just give it to me. Now, give me an award. Now, David Frankel... You know,
I like David Frankel as a director.
Well, here's the thing: you thought maybe you were getting, you know, something like Devil Wears Prada, like kind of smart, acerbic into it. Turns out you were getting Marley and Me, which he also directed.
Yeah, okay.
It's something ridiculously sappy. So I just think this thing is a total failure. I have to say though, hang on for a second. The Quiet Hour, which is on DVD, is kind of not bad as post-apocalyptic things go. It's Dakota Blue Richards plays this teenager who has to defend her farm, her parents' farm, and all the animals that live on the farm from these extraterrestrials who have been who have invaded, and they rape the earth of its resources and kill everybody, but they're around, and she's protecting her farm. And because it's basically a one location kind of movie, they're able to kind of use their budget and use their resources just to make that one location and the stuff that happens on that location totally look good and legit. So I was expecting nothing from The Quiet Hour, but I do love my post-apocalyptic films, and this one is very average, which, considering its pedigree, I would take as a total victory.
All righty, good.
All righty then.
TV. We're gonna hit some, knock some TV out of the way here. Killing Reagan is another one of those killing books based on the
Bill O'Reilly.
It's a movie based on the books by Bill O'Reilly and Martin Dugard. Who Martin Dugard never really gets. Everyone says it's a Bill O'Reilly book. No, it's the two of them. They do all those books together. And Dugard is the historian, and Riley puts his name on, or who knows?
What does Bill O'Reilly really do for these?
Well, he writes. I mean, they write them together, but Dugard is kind of the main researcher.
Can you please put this in so I can?
Yeah, who knows? Anyway, you know what? I mean, this was better than I expected it to be, because I thought some of the other ones, like Killing Lincoln, was just dreadful as a TV movie. It was just terrible. This is actually a little bit more interesting, mainly because they cast it well. I got to be honest with you. I never in a million years, Tim Matheson. Come on, no Tim Matheson as Reagan.
Like Animal House.
Exactly. Tim Matheson's Animal House. You know what? He's really good. He's really good. I mean, compared to some of the people like James Brolin who've just done these cartoonish portrayals of Reagan, I thought he was really, really good. He kind of nails the mannerisms, but it's not overboard, and he gives it a sort of humanistic context. And of course, this is mainly about the attempted assassination of Reagan by John Hinckley and everything sort of surrounding that moment. Is it great television? No, but it's got some interesting performances in it, and I found it oddly compelling, believe it or not. Fuller House is just I don't even know why this exists. Somebody had the idea to do a sequel series to Full House, only without the actors who made Full House, like the main. I mean, the three guys, they're not in it. John Stamos and the other two. And you know what? This was a complete misfire. This was a terrible, terrible idea. It's borderline unwatchable. 13 episodes. The first season. Is this even coming back for a second season?
Yes, I believe it is.
Are you serious?
Well, why not?
Oh my gosh.
Netflix will do anything. I'm starting to think that Netflix is just going to greenlight 875,000 shows.
They don't want you to go elsewhere. They want you to stay there.
That's right.
And they don't have to hit air dates, so they're not restricted by hours during the week. They can have as much stuff on there as their hard drives can hold. When Calls the Heart of Faith. This is the ongoing Hallmark series based on the Jeanette Oki novels, and they're all very House on the Prairie-ish, as one would expect for something produced by Michael Landon Jr. And you know what? It's getting a little bit old at this point. But they have a following. So if you love these kind of homespun, folksy, quasi-spiritual things, then knock yourself out. Drunk History season 4.
This thing was funny for when it first happened, and it was like a unique idea, and everyone was kind of really getting off on it. I really liked it a lot.
Running out of gas.
You're 4 seasons in now. Come on.
Yeah, it's running out of gas. Anyway, there's an election special on here that's not very interested. Deleted scenes and whatnot. And I don't know. I never found the thing really that engaging, so it's super tedious by now. And then season 1 of a Smithsonian Channel series called Polar Bear Town, which is kind of basically a series that it's like Shark Week except with polar bears. That makes sense.
So you're saying that soon there's going to be a.
What's
that shark movie series on Sci-Fi?
Oh yeah,
Sharktopolis.
Yeah, something like that.
Sharknado.
Yeah,
Polar Bear NATO.
There you go. Sort of Polar Bear. Anyway, so what happens is basically every fall in Manitoba, in this town in Manitoba, there are 1,000+ polar bears that migrate through on their way over to the Hudson Bay, and this is essentially about that. It's a little bit terrifying. It's not as interesting as it probably should be, but you learn a lot about polar bears.
Stupid polar bears.
There it is.
They're the dumbest.
All right, Mark.
Wolf Creek is a TV series based on the movie. It's a TV series you haven't seen based on the movie you never saw. And Wolf Creek is it's about this American college girl, and she's in Australia. Her family gets brutally slaughtered by a serial killer, and she's going to get this guy or goddamn die trying. I got to say, the guy who plays the villain, this guy John Jarrett, I don't know who he is or where he came from, but he's good. He's kind of like a really good bad guy. Like
nice.
That guy. This show is better than I thought it would be. I like the fact that sometimes some of the episodes are kind of moody, and then some of the other episodes are super violent, and I thought it turned the screws pretty well. I was very, very surprised at Wolf Creek. It's a weird piece of IP to resurrect. It's just a movie from 10 years ago that just
strange,
why this?
They're going after everything now.
But it kind of works. Insecure is a real surprise. I don't know who this Issa Rae is or was before she did this show, but she is fantastic, and it's such an interesting. What's great about the show is that it's an HBO show. It's about African American women trying to make it in Los Angeles, make it in the big city. And I like the fact that a lot of times, because unfortunately there's so few opportunities for African American actresses to star in their own TV shows and star in their own films, that a lot of times they're like they're the hero, like hidden figures. They're the heroes. They're the ones who save everything because they're just modern women who are going to they've got it all together. In this show, it's not like that. They're screwed up and they're insecure and they're struggling and trying to make it. And there's a lot of great comedy in there. There's a lot of empathy in there. The friendships seem authentic. And I just don't know where this show came from or where she came from, but it's great. It's great. So I would definitely check out Insecure on HBO. Also, Mystery Science Theater.
Your favorite.
One of these goddamn things that I'll take because I take them all. This is volume 38.
There are more Mystery Science Theater volumes than there are movies that they actually cover, which is amazing. I don't know how they do that mathematically.
They did an entire season where they actually they riffed comedically over color bars. A whole season.
Amazing.
Just color bars.
Fascinating.
Wow.
What about the Indian? Do they riff on the Indian?
You know, I was talking to somebody the other day about how back in the day when we were very small children, there were only 3 television networks, and they would sign off at the end of the day. They would sign off at midnight at 1 a.m.
And you get the test pattern with the...
you would get God Bless America, whatever it was. It was a national anthem with a shot of the American flag waving, and then after that...
pattern.
They would go down for the night in a test pattern.
With the Indian in the middle.
That's right.
Which never made any sense to me.
No.
So $1 Million American Princesses is a Smithsonian Channel series, which is actually surprisingly interesting. It is Elizabeth McGovern hosts this. It is 6 hours of looking at the women who basically were the model for her character in Downton Abbey, which are American heiresses from a particular period, new money, and who married into the British aristocracy and created these the British aristocracy that was a little bit cash strapped. And it's a really interesting story. I had never heard of any of these people. A couple I had, but for the most part, it's a completely new history, and it's really interesting. And I do recommend it for anyone who's especially a fan of the show. Grace and Frankie is in its 2nd season now. Jane Fonda and Lily Tomlin, along with Martin Sheen and Sam Waterston. It's a pretty great bunch of people. This thing has gotten all kinds of nominations, Golden Globes, and I don't think it's quite as amazing as all that. But when you put 2 actresses of that caliber in a new show, it's going to get a little bit of attention. I don't know how much more they can squeeze out of this, though. I really don't.
I saw Jane Fonda at one of our year-end parties.
Yeah.
She looks terrible. So much work done. Just tight. She looks like Catherine Hellman in Brazil.
So it's not about the aerobics anymore?
No. She just looks terrible. I know, and when I say look terrible, you'll watch her on the show and go, God, she looks beautiful. Well, yeah, you know what? She's gotten a whole lot of work done. She sits in makeup for 3 hours getting all made up for the show.
Well, when you can afford it.
They shoot it with soft lighting, and before you know it, she's 70 years old, looks fantastic. And by the way, I'm saying this as somebody who regrets all the years that Jane Fonda took off to be married to what's his name?
Ted Turner.
Ted Turner.
Yeah.
I mean, she was denying us a lot of great performances, but I guess now she's back and looking older than ever.
All right, Mark, I'm going to haul through some Brit TV. Okay, you want to take a nap? It's time for Brit TV. The Brokenwood Mysteries Series 3 on Blu-ray and DVD. It's beautiful on Blu-ray. This is Brit TV only because we, of course, extend this to the Commonwealth. This takes place in New Zealand. These are amazing mysteries firmly in the vein of Murdoch mysteries and all that great stuff from the UK. Basically, UK mysteries set in New Zealand. Feature-length mysteries, and it's all about what goes on in the tranquil environs of rural New Zealand. It's great. It's really, really great. That's always been a really interesting subject to a lot of people. Twin Peaks and lots of things like to deal with the underbelly of what seems to be the innocent portion of the world. That once you get into the rural portion of the world, you lose all of that urban gunk, and that's not really the case. There's a lot of gunk in the rural parts of the world as well. Anyway, amazing photography, really beautifully done, and fantastic performances by Neil Ray and Fern Sutherland, Nick Sampson. Really interesting cast. I think these people are terrific. I really want to see them make features, especially Fern Sutherland. She is wonderful. So I highly, highly recommend the Brokenwood Mysteries Series 3. Continues to be really, really, really strong writing. We got Ian Glenn getting all crusty and really aging into the Jack Taylor character. This is set 3 of Ian Glenn as Jack Taylor, and he continues to be really, really great in his prime. I'd love to see him do feature stuff again, but he's been doing a lot of great TV, Game of Thrones, among other things, and Jack Taylor is just perfectly written for him based on the Ken Brune books. These are just really rock solid mysteries. It's great stuff. Absolutely perfect. It's right up there. It's with the best stuff that you see on British television. The 3 more really good ones here from Acorn. This one's Australian. This is The Code, Season 2. The Code has a great cast. First of all, Anthony LaPaglia, who has apparently completely recommitted himself to working almost exclusively on Australia, is great. People often forget Anthony LaPaglia is Australian.
Like Sam Neill. Like Sam Neill, what does he do? He does mostly Australian stuff.
Yeah.
And sometimes he appears
But
in
LaPaglia became such a fixture in American movies and American television, talking like a New Yorker, and with a name like LaPaglia, you just assume, no, he's Australian. And he's getting a lot of great work now back in Australia. This is one of them. This is really, really great. It's a tech thriller series that kind of centers around a hacker who's trying to sort of unveil government corruption. And it really, really starts to get into some very, very prescient stuff, especially with all of our talking about hacking this and spying that. I mean, we've got, whether or not you buy into the idea of Russians hacking the election, whether or not you buy into the idea of Obama spying on Trump and Trump Tower.
I do. I think that's totally true.
Whether or not
Trump does not tweet lies.
But it's interesting that this is now what the conversation revolves around. It is everything related to surveillance and bugging and hacking, and this is our new world. And that is fascinatingly a lot about what this is about. That's central to this, and some great performances in this thing. 6 episodes, really, really interesting. I hope it continues to be an interesting show. It's second season. Original for Acorn TV. Acorn does, in fact, do DirecTV stuff. Not DirecTV, but they have their own Acorn TV channel, and this is an original for it, is The Level, which has also some really, really, really great performances in it. This is a crime thriller series that gets into some kind of nasty, grungy stuff that you wouldn't be able to get into on commercial television, which is what makes it nice. Even on commercial British television, it's able to go a little bit darker, drug stuff and the like. And I think this is just really, really terrific. So that is The Level. And then we've got Deep Water with Noah Taylor and Yale Stone. Noah Taylor is such an interesting actor. That guy has had the most bizarre career. He has played a young Adolf Hitler. He starred in Shine as the young Geoffrey Rush. I cannot figure out for the life of me, I mean, he's not an easy guy to cast because he's a little bit hard to look at. But he's aged into a really interesting place. And now he stars along with Yale Stone in Deep Water, which is a also really, really dark, grungy, kind of a nasty look at the 1980s and 1990s period when there were murders of young gay men, on which this is loosely based. And it's tough to watch, but I think it's worth watching. But it doesn't go down easy. So Deep Water, which is nasty, ugly, mean stuff.
I'm often called nasty, ugly, and mean.
Oh, hang on. Let me drop another couple in there real quickly. On Blu-ray from BBC, Doctor Who: The Return of Dr. Mysterio. We haven't talked about any Doctor Who stuff in quite a while, and Peter Capaldi stars along with Matt Lucas, Justin Chatwin, and Charity Wakefield in a really interesting adventure that involves the return of a guy named Dr. Mysterio, who I'm unfamiliar with. But this all takes place in New York, and it dovetails with an American superhero that I don't know if they've ever introduced on Doctor Who before. But in any case, Dr. Mysterio.
Why is there no like Dr. What or Dr. How or Dr. When?
I don't know.
Why is there just Dr. Who?
Yeah, I don't know.
You know what they need to do? They need to do like a whole a team of superhero journalists, and they have Doctor Who, What, When, Why, and How.
Here's what this feels like. This feels like they wanted to get Doctor Who involved in the whole superhero thing, so they just sort of made up a story and made an excuse to get him to New York. That's kind of what it feels like. There's a whole thing in this with aliens and brains.
You know what? I've never got Doctor Who. I don't get it. The ship sounds like the word retarded.
So,
and there's really you can't have a show where the ship reminds anyone of the word retarded.
I include this only in the British stuff because it's British produced for the most part. Mercy Street season 2, which is the Civil War series. I'm kind of tired of this already. I don't know have you watched any of this? You've been watching any of this?
No.
Mercy Street, the Ridley Scott produced thing. I kind of feel like they've gotten as much out of this as they're ever likely to. I don't know if there's any more.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
Okay. In thinking who we're going to give our next Lifetime Achievement Award to at LAFCA,
yes,
you got to you think to yourself, let's give it to Ridley Scott. Why would you do that? Well, Ridley Scott is like 70.
Yeah.
I mean, you're of the age where you can give somebody like Ridley Scott the Lifetime Achievement Award, even though Ridley Scott has been around for so long, and he seems like he's been 50 years old for like 40 years. He just doesn't seem like a guy who is in his 70s.
I know.
I mean, tell me he would not deserve a Lifetime Achievement Award.
Nah, he would. Absolutely would.
There's other actors like that who are now in their 70s that we don't picture them in their 70s. Thank you.
He's still working, though. He's still at the peak.
You know what? I have to
form.
say, the whole alien thing, I feel like the more I know about the aliens and where they come from, the less interesting they become.
I agree.
I
don't need to connect all the dots.
I don't need to know that it was an American thing, the Earth, and they saved the weapons. It's like you're over-explaining the whole thing just to squeeze more money out of the franchise.
Yeah. Even
Aliens was fine, because in Aliens, they overran the compound. That was it. They had to kill them. Now suddenly they got to do this whole backstory and mythology and the thing where the survivors came in the year 0 and planted the seed of the aliens and the thing, and it's a weapons thing. Who cares?
It's exhausting.
God damn it.
All right.
Now I'm angry.
So, Docs, Mark. What do we got?
Doc Martin. Fire at Sea is a riveting documentary that did very well. Actually won the Golden Bear for Best Film, not just Best Documentary, but Best Film. And it is about, how can I explain this? There are refugees, and they try to make their way from Africa and the Middle East to Europe. And they get on boats and risk their lives, very similar to, let's say you're going from Cuba to the U.S. Mm-hmm. So as they make their way from Africa or the Middle East to Europe, there is an island that is about 150 miles south of Sicily called Lampedusa, and that's where these guys will sometimes have a little port of call. Maybe they'll rest. It's like a bit of halfway. But people live in that. Italian people live on that island, while these refugees are getting off to go hang out while they make their way from Africa or the Middle East to the mainland, to mainland Europe and Italy. And so this movie, Fire at Sea, is all about these immigrants who, it's not only about the immigrants who are coming there, it's also about the people who live on this island and how they try to live their life knowing that they're sort of in the middle of this global crisis of immigrants coming to Europe. And it's a great study in contrast. It's like, again, you've got this global crisis and you've got this everyday ho-hum life of these people who live on this island, including this kid that they talk to a lot. You also get a sense of the rescuers and how overwhelmed they are, and you get a sense of the refugees and how anguished they are and how confused and scared they are. And it's great. It reminds me a little bit almost of the new journalism. Remember, like, new journalism back in the day was all about doing news reporting in a more literary style. Mm-hmm. Fire at Sea is a little like that, where it's a documentary, but it's told in this way that is just so free range. It's really interesting film. So that's Fire at Sea.
Oscar nominee,
definitely. And then there's also Tower. Now, Tower is an interesting film. Tower is last year was the 50th anniversary of one of the first.
I like the animation in this, or what we can call animation. But I felt it was a thin. It was more flash than substance. It doesn't really address the story.
My fear was that the rotoscope animation that they used to tell the story of the day in 1966 when this former Marine climbed up to the top of the tower at the University of Texas with a gun, and he killed 14 people. He started to just pick them off with a rifle, and it's considered one of the first school, if not the first, major school shootings. And there's very little archive footage about the event. It was in 1966. So the directors, what they do is they rotoscope a lot of this in animation, almost like Waking Life. Remember the Richard Linklater film?
Yep.
And my fear was that they were going to use the animation to take attention away from the fact that there really isn't a lot of archival footage. And there's not a lot really in terms of survivors and people who were there at the time who can talk about it. And if it wasn't for the drama of the event, the idea that you hear, there are some real life. There's this one woman who was pregnant, and she was lying there bleeding next to her dead boyfriend, and only because this one total stranger was whispering in her ear, right, trying to keep her conscious, that she even survive. And there's a couple of great stories like that. My sense is that I don't know that you needed the whole rotoscope thing. It felt like an affectation.
I agree.
To keep your interest.
I agree.
The story should be interesting enough. So I would recommend Tower for the historical value. It's a fascinating story, but I wish it would have been told in a more conventional style.
I agree. All right, we've got a few other docs here. The Creeping Garden is from Arrow. This is a really unusual documentary. It's documentaries that deal with things that I've never heard of before are either interesting or confusing. And this is about the world of plasmodial slime. You know what plasmodial slime is, Mark?
It sounds like something they'd say on Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Yeah. All right. So there's a lot of research that goes into this, and it's the basically what the idea is that you can that this slime is like this. It is it's alive, right? Plasmodial slime is it's living stuff.
You know what Phil Klein told me when I had dinner with him?
Huh.
He said that only 10% of the population can be induced to sneeze by staring at a light. You know, like when you try to sneeze, you stare at a light and that gets you to sneeze. He said only 10% of people can be forced to sneeze in that manner. That seemed weird too. I thought like everybody could be forced to sneeze by staring into a light.
All right. Okay. Well, anyway, plasmodial slime is alive and it's
That's
weird.
That's a great name for a band, by the way.
And it's like what the Blob probably was, except it's not trying to take over the Earth. I know. It's so upsetting. Again, in any case, this almost feels at times like a science fiction mock documentary because you think that could not possibly be so, but it is in fact. So, I mean, this is kind of a weird cult documentary, The Creeping Garden. It's probably worth looking at, I guess, if you like things that are unusual, if you just want something to kind of float your boat that's not the usual thing. But anyway, loads of extras on this thing. Watch at your own risk. And then we have a couple of terrific ones here from Icarus, which have both been released previously, as I understand it, but to the academic market, not to the average regular home DVD buyer. So this is nice. Now these things are available not for the like $900,000 licensing fee for academic institutions. To Tell the Truth includes two documentaries: Working for Change, documenting hard times 1929 to 1941, and The Strategy of Truth, the documentary goes to war 1933 to 1945. These are two films by Calvin Skaggs and David Taylor, or David Van Taylor. And they are essentially all about those moments when the working class, the American labor movement, sort of was birthed. And The Strategy of Truth is probably the most interesting one because it deals specifically with propaganda filmmaking during World War II and how it evolved, especially in the United States. Working for Change deals with the social nonfiction film as it evolved during the first few decades in the English language world. And a lot of interesting stuff here. It is very much about those first few crucial decades of the 20th century and how nonfiction filmmaking really dovetailed with movies about the common man, and especially with propaganda during World War II. It's interesting stuff. I was not familiar at all with the work of Calvin Skaggs and David Van Taylor, but worth discovering now. And then A Boatload of Wild Irishmen, The Life of Robert Flaherty, is absolutely great. This is wonderful. I have seen this before, and I'm thrilled that people can now get this again. Robert Flaherty, of course, is the father of the documentary film. Nanook of the North is, and his other films are all considered sort of seminal works in the documentary field. And there was even a documentary, a non-documentary film starring Charles Dance that was called Kablunak, which was made probably about 20 years ago. Never been released on DVD or Blu-ray. Needs to be. It's a really, really good movie. In any case, this is all about Flaherty and his life and his work, and it's wonderful. It is. If you have a documentary collection of movies that are about film history and significant film figures, this is one that absolutely has to be there. It is really, really superb, and includes a great 16-page educational booklet. Really terrific.
Yes.
All right. We have to cover this. Have you seen this?
I have seen it.
What do you think of it?
I liked it. I mean, why not? Come on, you're talking about Mr. Spock.
But made by Leonard Nimoy's son, Adam Nimoy, made a movie called For the Love of Spock. And I would have expected this to just be another one of those sort of family vanity things, like, wasn't my dad great? My dad was Spock. But it's not actually. It really is pretty. He got everybody to talk to him on this. Lots of great interviews. And I thought it was very, very touching and very insightful. And it's kind of adds a great deal to to everything that we know about Star Trek and Leonard Nimoy and so forth.
Well, also, there was interesting stuff there about alcoholism.
Yeah, right.
I didn't realize that alcoholism kind of ran in the family.
Yeah.
Because his son dealt with alcoholism, and Nimoy, Leonard, also a little bit there. And it's just a fascinating documentary, because it was tough-minded. He's honest about how estranged he felt from his father for a lot of years there, and how they finally, wound up in some sort of détente. And so it was tough-minded, a lot of good interviews, a lot of fun, behind-the-scenes photos and whatnot. And if you love Star Trek like I love Star Trek, I was very happy to watch this, and I was surprised at how complex it became in terms of his relationship with his father.
I agree.
So definitely worth watching, not just from like a nerd fan thing, but just because it's an interesting story of a father and son who were kind of like, had a difficult relationship.
All right, we are right at the end of the show, so I am going to cap things off with some recommendations for foreign language TV shows. Everybody's getting in on this act now. Well, not everybody. MHZ have been kind of the lone occupiers of this space for a while. Kino is getting in on this game as well, and they're finding some really, really great foreign language shows as well. So here are the cream of the crop right now. The Bureau is a French language show, basically an espionage show dealing with the Age of Terror and what's going on in France, which there is a lot to. It's like Homeland in France, and it is really, really top notch. It's extremely well done, very well written. If you've been wondering what Mathieu Kassovitz has been doing as either an actor or a director, he's in this. And he does a really good job. There's there's intersection with the CIA and all kinds of stuff. It's a really interesting show. 2 seasons from Italy. Romanzo Criminale. How's my Italian, Mark? How is that?
Better than my English.
That's 22 episodes in 2 seasons. You can buy them each separately. 10 seasons in one, 10 episodes in one, 12 in the other. And this is a little bit kind of in the same vein. But it's a little more epic. This deals with a guy who wants to become kind of the godfather of Rome. He wants to be the Tony Montana of Rome. Francesco Montanari is the actor. It is absolutely terrific. And this thing spans decades. It is loosely based in fact, but it has a real kind of godfathery quality to it. Very bloody, but really well acted. Very interesting. Good, solid Italian television programming. And then 10 episodes in I Am the Ambassador. This is a Danish language show, which is a documentary series. This is not a narrative. This is a documentary series that is specifically looking at the life of the former U.S. ambassador to the Kingdom of Denmark, Rufus Gifford. And
okay, that's a silly name.
You know what? He was very involved in the Obama administration as well, and it is quite an interesting look at what it is to be an ambassador, because most of us don't really think of being an ambassador as like, what do you do? Like, what's your job? Just to
you embass.
Exactly. Right? What does it mean to embass? I have no idea. And then we have this interesting Celtic noir thriller, is what they call it. Corp Anam, seasons 1 and 2. This is from MHZ. This is an Irish show, and it is pretty darn intense. This is right up there with the very, very best of British television. The difference being that it is actually in the Celtic Irish language. So, and
that's a funky sounding language.
That is a funky sounding language, and
cool.
It is cool when you watch it. And it's nice to know that there's actually still like native language television programming in the Celtic parts of the United Kingdom. Which I didn't even realize. I had no idea. But how do you even write that in a script? I don't know, with all those accents and all those letters. I just don't know. Anyway, it's a really, really gritty, interesting show. Gets into some kind of nasty stuff. Pedophilia even factors into this at one point. But it's otherwise very, very solid. And then we've got 3 seasons of the Wiesensee saga, seasons 1, 2, and 3. I am less enthused about this than some of the other stuff, perhaps because I'm half German and I just tend to my eyes glaze over sometimes with these big sweeping sagas that take place in Germany, because I just know a lot of these people. But if you're not as jaded as I am, you will probably find a lot to really enjoy in this. This is really a huge. This is, I don't want to call it like a television version of Berlin Alexanderplatz, which was already a television version of Berlin Alexanderplatz. But it in terms of getting into some of the Cold War stuff, East Germany and East Berlin, it does, how that affected families and how that affects these families in particular. It goes into some pretty rich stuff. And over the course of these 3 seasons, there's a lot of really, really interesting historical stuff that did actually happen in the 1980s. So the Wiesensee saga, 3 seasons. And then lastly, we've talked about this before. I just want to make sure everybody knows that A French Village, also from MHZ, continues. And we have season 6 now. It takes place in 1945. It is the first season after the war. This, of course, is all about a French village, what it endures throughout the war years of World War II. And now that we've gotten to season 6, we're finally out of the war. So we're getting into some interesting stuff as they continue this saga of this village. There's a whole new tapestry of historical events to deal with, specifically the post-war stuff. So very, very cool. Continues to be a very solid series. I highly recommend it. All right, with that, Mark, we are done. And you are heading off once again to across the pond, aren't you?
I'm going to. I will not be here next week, as I will be in merry old France. It's called merry old France, right?
Fantabulous. Wonderful.
I'm going to a club run by David Lynch.
Ooh, very nice.
Called Silencio. It's a club in Paris.
Yeah.
My girlfriend got invited. It's a members-only club before midnight. Nice. If you show up after midnight, anyone can come in.
Fantastic.
And she got invited to some screening of a TV show that she's working on. So we will be hanging out at a club that is either we're not quite sure what David does with this club. He might just put his name on it. We're not sure. But it's definitely a David Lynch club. And he knows about it and has signed off on it and has been involved in some capacity.
We'll have a merry, jolly old time in ye old France, and we will see you when you're back.
Thank you.